Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakad's Bookish Cafe. Today we are here to do my March TBR. Alright guys, we are back to a odd numbered month. You know what that means? It means that we will be playing Lezerin Egadish Nisht once again. As always, I will go ahead and leave my playlist up above, which has past rounds as well as kind of a introduction video explaining the rules of this game. But it is relatively straightforward, so you should be able to just jump right in with me. Before we get into our roles though, we have a few housekeeping things that I want to go through. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that I am going to be taking part in a readathon this month. It is called Seasonathon. It is created by completely Melanie and Amanda from the Reading and Writing Life, as well as Amy from A Star Reads will be co-hosting that. So I will go ahead and let you know which books I will be choosing for this lovely bingo board. Because I am taking part in a readathon, I have kind of switched the order in which I do things. Usually I end my video by choosing my challenge cup book out of my little challenge cup. However, I'm gonna go ahead and do that a little bit earlier. You'll see a video of me doing that just because I wanted to be able to include it within the readathon prompts. As usual, I can't use it for one of my TBR game prompts. However, I did want to make things a little easier for myself because I definitely put a lot of books on my TBR this month. We are being very optimistic. The last thing that I really wanted to talk about was a little change that I will be making to the game. I earlier this month went ahead and put up a little poll to kind of gauge people's interest in me doing a viewer prompt for you guys, which I'm realizing right now I never actually did. I never actually did it because I already filmed my board rolls and everything. Okay, that's fun. So this is my first time doing it, so clearly it is not part of my routine yet. I will go ahead and set up my board again and do that roll for you guys because I was really excited to do it and then I didn't do it. So you will go ahead and see your guys's roll. It might look a little different than the other setups just because I forgot to do it this time, and that was on me. In the future I will not forget. So essentially what this viewer prompt is that I am going to do an additional roll at the end, and that'll be a prompt that you can go ahead and fulfill. I know there are a lot of other YouTubers who do this and I always enjoy when they do it, so I figured I would go ahead and join the club and do one as well. I would love to know which books you guys end up choosing for that prompt down in the comments. I was initially going to have it so that when you guys completed the prompt, it would help me if I didn't complete one of my TBR books, because I could count your guys's reading towards it. Like if a certain number of people completed the book, this is something that Bookara does. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that right away. I think I kind of want to get an idea of how many people really want to take part in it before I decide like what number I want to set that at. So for now, just let me know if you are going to go ahead and do the prompt and what book you want to read, and eventually I will kind of decide if I do want to add that additional step to it. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the books that I selected for my January prompts and if I completed them or not. All right, so roll number one had been a fantasy with a beautiful cover, and I went ahead and selected The Mother of Death and Dawn. I did not end up reading this book because I ended up getting it finally from the library maybe around the 30th, 31st of the month. Whoever had this book in their possession was not letting it go. So I decided, also with the approval of some of my subscribers, that I even though I didn't finish this, I'm not going to go ahead and force myself to take a punishment prompt because of this book, because I didn't have the opportunity to read it, and the hold on it lasted a lot longer than the 3 weeks that I was informed it would take. It took closer to 6 weeks actually. So this kind of caused me to reevaluate my goals, especially as I start to consider potentially reading more library books, that sometimes the estimated hold on a book is just longer than you expected. And is it fair for me to have to take a punishment prompt when it isn't really my fault that I didn't read the book? So essentially I decided that if I cannot pick up a library book and still have at least 5 days to complete it, then if I don't finish it or get 50% through it, I won't take a punishment for that specific book. However, I will also not allow myself to take a reward even if I finished all of the other books. So essentially, if I finished all the other books on January's TBR, because I didn't get to this one, I will not take a reward, but I also won't take a punishment because me finishing this 720 page book in one day, no. Rule number 2 ended up being a romance, and it was actually a mood read because I got one of my little people home, and I chose The Winter Duke by Claire Eliza Bartlett, and I DNF'd this. Rule number 3 was also a romance. This was by a Hispanic or Latinx author, and I chose Des Country by R.M. Ramiro, and I also DNF'd this one. Rule number 4 ended up being a sci-fi, one that took place outside of the US, and I ended up choosing The World Gives Away by Marissa Levine, and I did finish this one. Rule number 5 ended up being another romance, and this one was by a repeat author, and I ended up choosing Moonstruck by Only James, and I did read this one. And the final rule number 6, had been another sci-fi. This one was to be a middle grade or a young adult, and I ended up choosing A Flash Fire by TJ Klune, and I did finish that. That being said, per my new rules, I will not be taking a punishment prompt, but I also do not get a reward. So without further ado, let's take a look at the book I selected for my challenge cup, and then we'll get into rule number 1. All right, everyone, we are here to pick a book from our challenge cup to see if we can hopefully use it in the Readathon prompts. That'll make life a lot easier. So far, I have been doing okay with this challenge. I ended up DNFing the first book that I pulled, which is actually what I did last year as well. So hopefully that doesn't become a pattern. And I am currently working on the second pick. I picked Human Acts by Hong Kong, I believe was the author's name, and I'm making my way through it very slowly. It is a very difficult book to read, and my mental health has already been not that great due to the current political climate of America. So I'm not sure if I will finish that or if I'll carry it into the next month, but I am working on it. So we will see which book we add on. I don't really know what I want, especially since at this point I have already forgotten most of the books that I have put in here. So something short would be nice. Let's go with this guy. I'll let you see it first. So that's upside down. What does that say? I suck at reading. Okay, what does that say? Spellbound by Ali Theron. Okay, so this is by Hispanic Latinx author. So I think I can visualize the cover in my head, and I'm pretty sure it's not too long. So I will let you know more about that in a moment. All right, guys, so the challenge cup has spoken, and we will be reading Spellbound by Ali Theron. This is a historical fantasy that is featuring, I believe, a male-male romance. So in this book, we seem to be following a man whose job it is to protect the rest of the world from very dangerous relics. And one day, one of these relics is making its journey somewhere, and our character needs to go ahead and intercept it. However, in order to do this, he needs, I think they called it a psychometric. Do I know what that is? No. There seems to only be one guy whose powers are great enough to handle this relic, but this guy is actually sworn off using his ability due to the danger that it poses to himself. However, you know, we can't really let the world be destroyed, so he decides to join this other man, and they go on a journey or something and have to work together to figure out where this relic is and how to intercept it and destroy it or keep it safe, whatever. But obviously, while they do that, they are probably gonna fall in love a little bit. So I'm hoping that it is a fun time. I am getting the ebook version of this from my library. For some reason, I could only download the whole series at one time. However, I will only be reading the first book in this series. All right, everyone, here is our board based off where we ended in January, per my new rules where I'm being nice to myself when it comes to library books. We will not be starting with a punishment, but we'll go ahead and jump right into a roll number 1. I don't really have anything that I specifically want because I have no plan, so we're just gonna go with it. Oh my gosh, that's really far away. Can you even see that? Yes, you can. Okay, so that is a horror thriller mystery. We're gonna roll. We get a 3, so we gotta move. Oh, we gotta move that guy. So we'll okay. 1, 2, 3. We are already going up to 6 rolls instead of 5 because we kicked him out. And this needs to be a horror thriller mystery. That's the last thing we need right now, to start a new series. All right, roll number 1, and we are already knocking people out. But we went ahead and got a horror thriller mystery, and this was to start a new series. So I decided to choose a book that I actually had put on my spring TBR just to get ahead on that, and that is going to be The Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. So this is the first book in what I'm hoping is a duology. I keep saying that every time I talk about this book. I'm just not sure if the series is complete or not. But essentially, we are following a monster hunter. We are in a post-apocalyptic setting. All the gods and heroes of the past have returned, and all the monsters and villains have come along with them. On top of that, it seems a young girl has gone missing, and it is up to our main character and this guy here to find her. So I am excited to get into this series to see what I think about it. I do have relatively good luck with like post-apocalyptic settings, so I am excited to get into this. And I would say between the monsters and the missing girls, it is definitely a horror thriller mystery while also being very sci-fi. All right, guys, so we are now getting into roll 2 out of 6. We got a historical, a 6, so we get to pull someone out, which is good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so actually we can't pull someone else out because they would kick out their own person, and they can't do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This historical needs to have been released in 2022. All right, guys, our next prompt was a historical, and this one was to be written in 2022, or released, I should say, published in 2022. And I decided I am finally going to read T. Kingfisher. I am interested in a lot of their books, but I never want to pick any of them up because I'm like, I own this book. Until I read this book that I have spent my money on, I'm not going to read any of their other stuff. But when I heard that this was turning into a series that isn't completed yet, I got a little bit nervous and kept putting it off. But we're going to go ahead and read it. This, I believe, is a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher, which is, I don't think that's Edgar Allan Poe, right? I don't believe that I have ever read that story, so I'm not familiar with it. I also have not watched the TV show, despite the fact that I really want to. In this book, we follow a doctor who receives a notice from their friend that she is dying, I believe. Yeah, so their friend Madeline Usher is dying. So they go ahead and run to her home to kind of like figure out what's going on. And it seems that there's weird stuff happening at the house. There's a lot of like fungal growth going on. Their friend is like sleepwalking. And so they are joined by a British mycologist and a baffled American doctor. And together they will try to figure out what is going on with this house before it consumes them all. So we are following a non-binary main character, and I'm not sure if it has any romance in it, but it looks so creepy. I mean, look at that. Look at, no thank you. So I am excited to finally check out this book, and it's super short, which is perfect for this relatively large TBR I have going on here. Alrighty, roll 3 out of 6. Another horror thriller mystery. And another 3. So we gotta move this one. Oh, thank God. 1, 2, 3. We're not knocking another person out. Okay, so this has to be by a new author. All right, roll number 3 got us another horror thriller mystery. This one is to be by a new to me author. I have actually selected the group book for this upcoming readathon that I'm taking part in, and that is A Quiet Place. This is by Seraphine Nova Glass. I have never heard of this book before or this author, so she's definitely new to me. This seems to be kind of your classic suburban thriller situation. I think we're following 3 different women. One who thinks her husband is cheating on her, another who is dealing with the grief of losing her son to a hit and run a year ago, and a third who seems to be a single mother who is starting to act very suspiciously. On top of that, it seems that this woman who has lost her son doesn't believe that the hit was an accident, and so she's kind of looking into that, and she has agreed to help the other woman look into her husband and some of his activities on top of that. So I have a feeling it's just gonna get really messy. I will be listening to this as an audiobook, and I am excited to check it out. All right, on to roll number 4 out of 6, a sci-fi, a 2. Oh, okay. So I can either move this one and get an extra roll, which I think would be detrimental to me because I can't guarantee I can double up with all of these when it comes to the readathon. But if I do this one and I move 2, that'll give me a sci-fi mood read, which could be helpful when trying to get it to fit into other prompts. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that, just to be nice to myself. So that is going to be a sci-fi mood read. All right, roll number 4. We ended up getting a sci-fi, and we decided to go ahead and move our little person in their house so that we can get a mood read just to be nice to ourselves. And I have decided to go ahead and take this opportunity to finish up a series. I will be reading Heat Wave by TJ Klune. This is the 30th, oh my gosh, the 3rd and final book in the Extraordinaries series. In this book, we are following Nick and his group of friends. They live in a world where a few people do have special abilities, and there are 2 people within Nick's city that do have special abilities, and they seem to be enemies. Nick has a crush on one of these superheroes and writes a lot of fan fiction about it, kind of self-inserting himself. And one day he decides that the best way for him to be with a superhero that he loves is to become a superhero himself. And that sends him and everyone around him on a whole journey of shenanigans. I absolutely love this series. It makes me so happy. It makes me laugh so much. So I am really excited to go ahead and finish it up and return to these characters that I have really come to love. All right, I really need a fantasy or a romance because I need to get this fantasy romance book on my TBR. So one of those, please, for roll 5 out of 6. Oh, Look at that. All right, a 1. Okay, should I be on the safe side and do a mood read? That way I can for sure put that. Or, well, we're definitely not moving that guy. I could also move that guy. Do I want to make things complicated, or do I want to be nice to myself? You know what? We're here for the drama. We're here for the drama. So we're gonna move this guy. We're gonna move him. Let's hope we don't regret it. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. What is it? What is it? A 5-star prediction. That's always a great prompt. All right, roll number 5. We got a romance, and we were kind of going between. Should we do a mood read, or should we take a chance and take a prompt? And the prompt ended off paying off because we got a 5-star prediction, and I was able to get that chunky book that I need to get on because it is a 5-star prediction, and that is The Mother of Dawn and, or I'm sorry, The Mother of Death and Dawn. For some reason, I keep wanting to say Dawn and Death, but it's Death and Dawn, and this is by Carissa Broadbent. This is the 3rd and final book in the War of Lost Hearts. Yes, and wow. She is huge and she is heavy. This is a whole weapon, and it is, I believe, around 720 pages long. As you can tell, this is the book that I meant to get in January, but I ended up not getting it until the end of that month. So this book is definitely, as of a couple days ago, overdue at the library. So it's probably going to be like the first book I read. Will that put me super behind? Because it'll take me at least a week, at least a week to get through this. Yes, but you know, I am super excited. I gave the second book 5 stars, so I am hoping that this one is 5 stars as well. This is a fantasy romance, not romantasy, fantasy romance. We are following a woman named Tasana who had been a slave for most of her life, and she had attempted to buy her freedom, and that ended with her master being dead at her hands. And so she escapes to another land that has a organization known as the Order, and these people have magical abilities. She herself has some magical abilities, and she asks them to train her so that she can return to her country and rescue and free the rest of the slaves. However, if they are going to do something for her, she is going to have to do a whole lot for them. Let me say, is it worth it? I'm not really sure yet. We'll see. She ends up training with a man who has left the Order because he has been very disillusioned of their goals and their methods. And we can kind of see throughout the story as he starts to teach her just who she has bound herself to. There is a lot of interesting politics and magic and relationships throughout the story. I really have a great time with it. I am intrigued to see how the story wraps up. All right, and what is going to hopefully be our final roll, we're looking at 6 out of 6 here. A fantasy, look at that. Who says the board doesn't listen? All right, a 4. We can only move this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is going to be a queer fantasy. Won't complain about that. All right, and then we got our final role, which ended up being a fantasy, and it is to be one with LGBTQ plus representation. Notice the TQ plus on there where it belongs. And the book that I ended up selecting is another one from my winter TBR, and that is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to get to this book. I have been hearing relatively good things about it, and the cover as well as the synopsis definitely is intriguing me. We have 2 young men who have been friends for a very long time. In fact, one could say that they are in love with each other, and one day one of our boys, I believe it's Andrew, yes, notices that his friend is acting a little bit strangely. He came to school after his parents disappeared with some blood on his clothes, and he seems to be sneaking out at night. And one day our character Andrew follows him and finds him in the forest battling these monsters. And it seems to be the monsters that his friend is drawing. These drawings are inspired by Andrew's stories. And so they start teaming up to battle these monsters together. However, Andrew starts to worry that the only way to actually stop them is to stop their creator. So I am very excited. I just can't get over how stunning this cover is, and it's not too long, and considering it's a young adult story, I think it'll be a relatively quick read, which is definitely what I need this month. All right, guys, so these are the books that I'm selecting for my TBR. On top of that, we have A Quiet Street, and now we need to go ahead and see which books we are going to use for our readathon bingo board. I will obviously allow myself to double up, otherwise I would be screwed. I might be screwed anyway. But before we get into the readathon prompts, let me go ahead and give you your guys' viewer prompt. I will film that in just a moment, but I will go ahead and include it here for you guys. All right, guys, here is the board. I have gone ahead and reset it up. Have I reset up my ring light? No, I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do your roll real quick. This is gonna be a little messy. I promise it will usually not be like this. I will usually remember to actually film the viewer prompt. So just like with when I do my rolls, I will roll my little genre dice first, and we will see what genre you guys will be reading, and then we will roll the number dice to see what happens. If someone gets knocked out, I will go ahead and roll again, which will actually be beneficial for you because you can have two prompts to choose from, and you can do one or the other or both, whatever you want. So let's go ahead and check out. I am doing this with my non-dominant hand, which is a completely useless hand apparently. Ugh. Okay, sci-fi. I feel like I've been rolling a lot of sci-fi lately. I don't know what that is. I hope you guys like sci-fi. So let's see what number we get. We get a number 2. So we can't move this guy anymore, so we do have to move this guy. The shadows are crazy, and we're not knocking anyone out. So 1, 2. The prompt that we're gonna get is to read a sci-fi book that is hyped. This can be hyped among your friend group, amongst the booktubers that you follow, the book talkers, you know, whatever you want. That is actually a pretty good prompt for you guys, so I hope you enjoy it. All right, guys, I hope you like the viewer prompt. I have no idea what it is, but hopefully it is one that you can fulfill this month. I mean, technically, I don't play my TBR game until May, so you technically, I guess, have 2 months to complete it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the books that we are selecting for the Seasonathon bingo board. So I do have my computer here in case you see me looking over here, because we do have 25 prompts. Now you can double, triple, probably even quadruple on prompts. However, I kind of cut myself off at 3 per book. So I'll just go in order of the bingo board, starting here in the top left-hand corner. Hopefully it's the left-hand corner for you as well. I think so. So the first prompt is going to be spring cleaning. So this is to read a book that has been collecting dust on your TBR. I decided to go ahead and use my challenge book Spellbound for this because it definitely has been on my TBR for a while, hence why it made it into the challenge cup. I believe per Goodreads I put it on there about June of 2023, so it has been almost 2 years since I put that on my TBR. All right, I'm actually not going to hold my computer because that hurts my arm, my little flimsy arm. So the next prompt is going to be New Beginnings, and this is to read the first book in a series, which worked perfectly because I had a matching prompt for that. So I'm obviously also going to choose The Trail of Lightning for that. Prompt 3 is going to be a wet t-shirt competition, which is to read a smutty book. I have put Mother of Death and Dawn on here. I wouldn't say this book is smut forward, but out of all the books that I put on here, this is the only one that I know has had explicit sex scenes in it, so that is why I went ahead and put this book for this prompt. Number 4 is going to be road trip, and that is to listen to an audiobook. I will be choosing A Quiet Street for this since I will be listening to it via audiobook. Prompt number 5 is going to be Let It Shine, and this is to read a cozy book or a book that'll make you happy, and I will be reading Heat Wave for this one. Prompt number 6 is going to be Holly Festival of Colors. This is to read a book either by an Indian author or a book with a colorful cover. I decided to go with the colorful cover aspect of it, and that is going to be Everything for You by Chloe Lisi. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name correctly. So this is the 5th book in the Bergman Brothers series, I believe it's what it's called, and I DNF'd the 3rd book and I did not read the 4th book yet. However, I have another prompt later on that I need to use this for, and that is to read a book with sports in it, and most of the books in this series do, but the 4th book didn't mention sports, and neither of the characters had any sort of sports gear or anything going on on the cover, so I decided to go ahead and just skip that one for now and go into this one. Also, this one is a male-male romance, and I prefer queer romances over heterosexual romances, and this one is also enemies to lovers. I believe they're soccer players, and that is literally all that I know about it, but I am going to be listening to the audiobook for this, and I'm just going to go into it relatively blind because it's a contemporary romance, so you don't really need to know too much other than some of the main tropes going into it. I also believe that this series usually has some sort of disability representation in it. However, I'm not sure at this point what it is, but I will obviously talk about that in my review if I get to this book, which fingers crossed I do. Next prompt was spring fashion, and that is to read a book with a beautiful cover. I am obviously choosing Don't Let the Forest In because you can't really compete with this. Prompt number 8 is called Rewind, and this is to read a past Seasonathon book or a book written by a past Seasonathon author. So essentially it seems like every time they have an author that they read the group book for, and then they interview that author, and it seems in the past TJ Klune was one of those authors, so very jealous that I was not there for that. But that being said, I believe the book that they read during that was Extraordinaries. Obviously I've already read that, but I am gonna read the 3rd and final book in that series for this. Prompt number 9 is gonna be April Showers, and this is a book that you think is gonna make you sad or gonna make you cry. I am choosing a book that I have already started and made a decent amount of progress in, but I'm kind of moving through it relatively slowly, so I know I'm not gonna finish it here in February, and so I'm just being nice to myself. This is the only prompt I'm using this book for, so I feel like it's not too terrible, but that is going to be Human Acts by Han Kang. This is my challenge book for the month of February. As you can see, I am 66 pages into it. I haven't picked it up for a few days just because this last chapter was rough to read, so I am just slowly but surely making my way through it, and I definitely want to go ahead and finish it next month. And considering I'll be working on it, I figured it might as well benefit the Seasonathon TBR a little bit. This is a historical story, and it takes place, I always want to say it wrong, so I just want to like read the word to make sure that I'm saying it correctly. It is for the Gwangju riots or slaughter, you could probably call it, that occurred in 1980 in South Korea. This was when a new dictator was trying to take over, and a lot of people were protesting that, and a lot of those people were killed, and it was a very dark time in South Korea's history. This author is South Korean and actually lived in this province, so it is a very personal story to her. Prompt number 10 is Luck of the Irish, and that is a book with a green cover. Hear me out. I have no idea how green this is gonna look on the camera, but I am choosing Trail of Lightning. I don't know if you can tell, but all this kind of smog and dust and stuff, it's like right there on the line of green and yellow and brown, but it is the book that I feel like is the greenest that I have going on right now. So I went ahead and selected it. It is definitely a stretch, but I need this, guys. I need it. Prompt 11 is just a self-care day, so you don't have to choose a book for that. So yay. And then prompt 12 is New Life, which is to choose a middle grade or children's book. I decided to choose Hero of the Water Monster, which is by Brian Young. This will actually also continue a series for me, and I believe complete a series. The first book is called Rescuing the Water Monster, Saving the Water Monster. I can't quite remember, but I really enjoyed that story. It is a middle grade written by an Indigenous author. We are following a young man who is staying with his grandma for a while because his father, I believe, has kind of like a new girlfriend, and they were going on a trip and he just didn't feel comfortable going with them. And he was out in the desert one night and he stumbles across this little water monster who is sick due to the water in that area being polluted by industrial manufacturing, essentially. And so he starts working with other spirits of the land to see if he can heal this little water monster. And I'm obviously not going to tell you how this book ends or anything, but essentially he ends up with a baby water monster by the end of that book, and he is to care for this baby water monster. And in the second book, he is getting too old. He's moving away from childhood, which is kind of causing him not to be able to have the same interactions with these spirits. And so he needs someone younger to help take care of this baby water monster now. And in comes his new stepbrother, the son of the woman that his dad is dating. So this book is kind of about him taking on this new responsibility and helping raise this little baby water monster, which sounds so cute. The first book had some emotional stuff going on in it, especially since you're dealing with beings that are being negatively impacted by the environmental destruction that humankind is causing. So I'll be interested to see what kind of messaging the author puts in this book. I will hopefully be getting to the audiobook of it. Prompt 13 is to read the group book, so I will obviously be reading A Quiet Street for that. Prompt number 14 is Spring Forward, and that is to continue a series, and I will go ahead and continue with the Broken Hearts trilogy, War of Lost Hearts. I don't know where I got that other name. That was completely wrong. And I will be reading Mother of Death and Dawn for this prompt. Prompt number 15 is Love is in the Air, and that is just to read a romance, and I will be choosing my challenge book, Spellbound, for this. I am pretty sure that there is going to be a romance in here. It is a trilogy. Will the romance develop in this first book, or will it not happen until later in the series? I'm not sure, but I am putting it as this prompt. Prompt number 16 is Over the Rainbow, like the Wizard of Oz, and therefore you are to read a classic or a retelling. I decided to go with a retelling, and that is going to be What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. And this is obviously a retelling of The House of the you know what? Let's just cut this video. The Fall of the House of Usher. There we go. So this is the book I will be selecting for this one. Number 17 is Spring Break, something us adults unfortunately don't usually get unless you're my mom who works for the school. And that is to read a book that is either young adult or middle grade, or no, actually young adult or new adult, my apologies. And I decided to go with a young adult book, which is going to be Flashfire by TJ Klune. Number 18 is Refresh Your TBR. This is kind of a treat yourself, where you could buy a new book, or you could just pick up a new book from a library or from a free little library, or borrow it from a friend or whatever. I decided to go with a library book just because I currently don't have any books that I want to or need to purchase. So I am once again going with Spellbound since I am getting that via my library. Prompt number 9 is Aquamarine, and this is a book to have water on the cover. I will once again be going with Hero of the Water Monster, and this has a ton of rain on it, so it also has the word water on it, so it works perfectly for this prompt. Prompt number 20, we have Women's March, and this is to have a strong female protagonist. I will be going with the Trail of Lightning once again. I'm assuming if she is out here fighting monsters and whatnot, that she is a pretty strong female protagonist. Moving into the final row, we have 21, which is Cherry Blossoms, which is to read a book by a Japanese or Japanese American author. I will finally be picking up the next Tokyo Ghoul volume. This is by Sui Ashida, and I will be on volume 4. Yes, I am 4 volumes in to the series that I meant to finish last year. So essentially this is a kind of horror sci-fi manga in which we are following a young man who lives in a world where ghouls exist, and ghouls are essentially humans that can only consume human flesh. Like, they don't get nutrients from other food, and it also tastes like disgusting to them. And one day he goes on a date with a lovely young woman who tries to eat him, and yeah, one thing leads to another where she ends up dying, and he is injured to the point where the doctor decides to transplant some of her organs into him, which obviously, since she's a ghoul, makes him a bit of a ghoul as well. And so he needs to kind of start integrating himself into the ghoul society and just figuring out his new place in the world. So I haven't had an amazing time with the manga, but I really did enjoy the anime, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep trucking along with that. Then we have prompt 22, and that is Aries, and that is to have fire on the cover, and I will be reading Mother of Death and Dawn. As you can see, there is fire on her sword. Number 23 is gonna be tip. Oh my god, why is it that 23 is tip toe through the tulips? There is way too many T words in that sentence. Okay, 23 is tip toe through the tulips. Okay, there we go. So this is to have flowers on the cover, and I will obviously be choosing Don't Let the Forest In. Number 24 is the last bookish prompt, and that is to have some sort of sport in it, and that is why I ended up choosing Everything for You, because I don't have a lot of books with sports in them, apparently. So that is what I'll be reading. And then the final prompt 25 is just to have your favorite beverage, so I will probably have a iced oat milk chai latte. All right, guys, so those are all the books that I will be reading this month. It is a little bit crazy. I am a little bit intimidated and not super duper optimistic. I was doing really great with my reading for the first half of February, and it's definitely slowed down, but hopefully it picks up again in March because we have a lot of great books and I would love to get to them this month. I would love to know if you guys are taking part in this readathon. If so, let me know some of the books that you will be reading for it, which ones you're the most excited for. Again, let me know which book you are selecting for your viewer prompt, and I'm gonna go film that right now. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!